Hi, my name is Mark Douglas from Trinity Data Solutions, and I'm here to tell you today about the Trinity gridding system. In all of our applications that we deliver, most of the time we have to deliver the data into a grid format. And the demo today is really meant to show you exactly how our grids work. So to do that, I'm using our LIMS system, which is a laboratory information management software package, to show you how we're looking at one particular grid called the instrument types management and what we can do with our grids as it is. Now by default our grids come in an easy to use format, and you can do the common sense things like resize the grid. You can click by clicking on a column header and being able to sort. The arrow right here shows you that we're sorted in an ascending format as opposed to a descending format, which would then put the UV in front. If you hold down the control key and press it, it will remove that off of the grid. Now, we have a basic menu that you'll see on all of our grids: print preview, refresh data, export data, grid view options, and layout options. And I'm going to get into each one of these in more detail as we go along. But the first thing that you need to remember is that the refresh button will ask for another retrip of all your data. And you notice that my cursor was down here, and when I hit refresh data, it brings it up to here. Always very important. Usually in any of our programs also, if there's a menu attached to the top, like in a management type screen, the menu will either be hooked directly to the item that you have chosen, as in the edit button. Like when I click edit here, it brings up the edit screen for this. Or in the case of add, it'll just be going into a new one without respect to that. Okay, now another area that I want to point out is the view monitor right at the bottom. The view monitor tells you which named view that you have, and although you don't know what a named view is just yet, we're going to show you how, when you customize the columns and the way that you like the grid to be set up, that you want to basically name your view so that you can recall it for later use. The grid will automatically remember what your last view was if you save it. So in this case, I'm not going to save anything, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the columns a certain size, and I'm going to move the reading columns by clicking and dragging it over to here. Now normally I would want to save that, but let's say for some reason I don't. When I go back into the instrument types program and bring it up, you'll see the grid is returned to its normal state. That's because it's in this default mode and you haven't actually saved any version of the grid, any of your changes that you did to manage the grid. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go, okay, instrument type, we're going to take the instrument type description and move it over to here, and then we're going to go and grab the reading type. And the reading type, we're going to now say, okay, I want to save this column. So how do we do that? We click layout, save layout. Or we can use the keyboard to do a Control G and a Control S. When I click that, it's going to ask me for a layout name, and I'm going to call this reading type, just for lack of a great naming scheme. So I'll do that. Notice my monitor right here, my view monitor is turned to reading type. Now when I close the window and I bring it back up, it restores reading type back to me. So the important key thing to remember here is that you want to say, I want to save anything that I set up in any of the grids. Now how can you tell if your grid has the ability to save any of this information? It's really simple. In any of the Trinity programs that we deliver, the standardized grid will always have this menu: print preview, refresh data, export data, grid view options, and layout options. You'll always see this menu. Okay, so what are some of the other customizations that we can make? Well, we can use the filtering button, and in the filtering button what it'll do is it'll give you a rundown, just like in Excel, of all of the options that are on there, all of the data that's in there. So for example, in the instrument type, I can look for gravimetric, or I can filter for H2O analyzer. And if you notice down here, the instrument type and the H2O analyzer are being set. Now, very important to remember. If, for example, I had set the reading type to S and I saved this view, and let's just say I'm going to keep it as the same view, it'll warn me and say reading type of name already exists. Do you want it with the current view settings? I say yes, I override it. When I close it and I bring it back up, you'll notice reading type is there, but it also saved my filter. Now, why is that key to remember? Well, sometimes if you set a filter and you don't have it named in the view, so for example, if I wanted to name this view reading type filtered S, when I bring that up, so now I know this is reading type filtered S, and when I go and bring up my save layout, if I bring up reading type, I actually want to get rid of this filter and I want to resave my reading type so that I know that that's reading type and that's reading type filtered S. So you see, saving the grid is important, but understanding what you're saving is really critical. Another feature that we want to show you is, let's just say, for example, that you wanted to group things. What we're going to do is we're going to return back to the reading type, and you wanted to group things by, say, a reading type. Well, I can drag up into this panel right here, which is our grouping panel, and I'm able to actually look at the grid grouped by reading type description. I can also go down and say, okay, now I want to see it by instrument type, etc., etc. I can save my grid layout the same way that I did before. So this time I'm going to say, alright, I want to do it by reading type grouped. And when I save that and say yes, now it's reading type grouped. If I go back to reading type, it brings me back to here. But there's one important thing I want to say when you're loading up a grouped window. Notice that it's not expanding everything for me. Sometimes that can be a pain when you want to see everything. So what we've done is we've added the expand all option, which is a Control G and a Control E. And that'll expand all of your features out. Okay, that's the first part of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more.